Hey guys, and welcome to another episode. In today's video, I'm gonna be going over everything that you need to know when you guys wanna go ahead and wrap your roof. So today I'm gonna show you how to get all of that done. So in here, I have vinyl wrap. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of vinyl wrap you guys can use, the same kind of principles will apply to each one. Now, that doesn't mean that all vinyl wraps are going to act the same way. So I find that using an Avery wrap, it's typically a lot easier of a wrap to use, especially if you're beginning with wrapping. So if you're starting off and you haven't ever wrapped anything before, especially if you're working with a curved panel, I think Avery is a very good way to go because it has a very nice bubble release technology. So let's say you have an air pocket underneath the wrap, you can actually just go in a circle and remove the entire thing very easily. If you guys are familiar with vinyl wrapping or you want to challenge yourself, I would suggest using some 3M 1080 vinyl wrap, and that is what I have in here. I purchased a 5x5 roll, and I'll explain why I purchased that big of a roll in a second. So what I want to do today in this video is vinyl wrap my roof that's on my Nissan 370Z. It's a gray color, just like the rest of the car, and I want to change it to a gloss black color. Now, the reason why I want to do that is because the A pillar has a very nice design where it swoops into the C pillar. And when you have a blacked out roof, it makes it look super clean. So what I'm going to be doing today is showing you all the techniques and some tricks and tips to help you get this job done without having any crinkles, wrinkles, imperfections, or whatever in the vinyl wrap. So the size of the vinyl wrap sheet that you guys need to buy is all dependent on the size of your roof. So for my Nissan, the roof itself is 4 feet across by 3 feet deep. So what you essentially want to do is buy a little piece of vinyl that's slightly bigger than that piece. So you have a little bit of overhang and then you can tuck it on each end. So what I did is I purchased a 5x4 section. Technically it was 5x5 because I wanted to take a foot of that to wrap my diffuser, but you want a little bit of overhang on each section. So let's say, for instance, your roof is a 5x4 roof. Let's say it's bigger than the one that I'm working with. Well, essentially, you'd want to get a 6x5, so you have half a foot of overhang on each end of it. That way, it's going to be easy to maneuver it, pick it up, put it back down. You're not going to be ruining anything. And let's say you've got fingerprints on the bottom side of the wrap. Well, you're not actually going to be using that section. That's going to be on the extra that you're going to cut off. So for my application, I purchased the 3M vinyl. I find that it gives a slightly better gloss finish, and you have a little bit of a nicer result in the end. However, it is slightly more difficult to use than the Avery stuff. Now, I have used Oracle and a whole bunch of other ones, and I'm not a big fan of them, especially the thicker ones, because they become very difficult to work with, especially when you're working on curved areas. Yes, it does involve using some heat, but if you're a beginner, I would definitely stay away from those things. Even if you're working with flat panels, let's say you're wrapping a Jeep Wrangler, which is basically just a square box, even something like that is going to be somewhat difficult, especially if you're using a thick kind of vinyl. If you want to go ahead and vinyl wrap your roof and it is perfectly smooth, you're not going to have to worry about having to curve it to any kind of conformity. So what you're essentially going to be doing is beginning halfway down the piece of vinyl, you're going to put one side down and then the other side down. So it's going to be quite simple if you're working with a flat panel, let's say on a Jeep Wrangler or something flat like that. But if you're working with something curved, it's going to be a little different of a process. You're going to tackle it differently and you're not just going to be going half and half and then throwing it down. So I've got a basketball right here. And if you want to vinyl wrap this thing, you can't just go ahead and push it down. Because what happens is the sides don't want to come down. You're getting a flat piece to conform to a sphere. So it's not really going to work that well. So the way that I would approach it is first in this star pattern. So you'd essentially want to start off in the middle, and then you're going to want to work your way and do a line all the way up and down, a line all the way across, and then when you get to the other sides in here, each one of these quadrants, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to heat up this section and pull it in a diagonal direction this way so that it's actually going to wrap and conform to the shape that you're working with. So you're not obviously going to have a panel that's as round or as circular as a basketball. However, if you're still working with any kind of curved part, this is the kind of technique that you'd want to go. You'd want to do one section at a time. Once you have this down, then you work on the other one, and the other one, and the other one, until you get a shape like that. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing today. Now, after we have, let's say, all of this down, that we're going to have some excess around the entire perimeter. We're going to cut that, trim that down, and then tuck that around each one of the panels. All the tools that you're going to need today are going to be found here on the cart. So the first of the supplies is obviously the vinyl wrap. That you need no matter what. The first tool, that is the most important one, is this. This is the heat gun. You're going to need this to conform and stretch the vinyl to any kind of curve. Whether it be something super curvy or just slightly curvy, you're going to need a heat gun. Now a variable one like this is going to make life super easy when you actually have to get that done. Now if you're doing this job by yourself, some magnets with some microfiber or felt on the bottom are going to be very helpful. It basically acts as another person. You're going to need some sort of way of cutting the vinyl. So I actually like using these Olfa blades with the art blades instead of the standard blades like this. Now, if you don't want to actually use a knife up to your paint, you can purchase what's called knifeless tape. And I'll have a link for it in the description box. When you're applying the vinyl, you're going to need a squeegee. So you can purchase a felt or a suede squeegee to get that done. The suede ones I find are a lot softer on the vinyl, especially when it's paired with a spray wax. So I'll be including links for all this stuff. The felt one, however, I find does scratch the paint a little bit. So if you're working with a dark colored vinyl or you don't want to scratch the paint at all, I would stay away from these. If you put too much pressure with something like this, you will indeed get scratches in the vinyl wrap. To prep the surface, you're going to be needing some microfiber towels and an alcohol spray. So with all this stuff here, you'll be able to get the job done no problem. So let's get started with these two materials right here. So you guys can be as OCD as you guys want. I'm gonna be using a microfiber towel along with some isopropyl alcohol to clean and prep the surface. So all you have to do is spray a little bit on the towel and then just give the entire roof a wipe down. You really wanna focus on getting each one of the cracks or the perimeter of the panel that you're working with clean. Because if you get dirt in there and you can't exactly remove it, when you go ahead and try and tuck the vinyl into each of those corners, it's not going to wanna stick. So if you grab a squeegee and you put it inside your towel, put your isopropyl alcohol on the edge, and you tuck that into all the corners, you'll actually be removing a lot of dirt that you missed. So see this towel that I have? This was a new one. Look at all this crap that I removed from it from an already clean car. So it just goes to show how much extra gunk is on there. So be sure to do this because the more crap that you have on the car, the less likely that vinyl wrap will want to adhere to the paint and stay on the paint. So the better job you do now, the longer it's going to last you in the long run. So the wrap that I'm going to be using today is from 3M. It's a 1080 series and I'm going with a gloss black, only so that this back section, which is the trunk, will flow into the front windshield. You guys can go and use different kinds of wraps. If you guys are new to this, you can also use an Avery wrap. Avery is a lot thinner of a product. It's a lot easier to work with, but it doesn't have the same kind of gloss characteristics as the 3M stuff. So it's entirely up to you. I've used both. I like using both of them. 3M isn't that much different. However, that's what we're gonna be using on the Z. If you have someone else to help you out during this process where you're laying down the vinyl wrap on the hood, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So I have Luca to help me out, and what we started off by doing is first removing the entire backing on the entire piece of the vinyl wrap, and then we hovered it over top of the roof. The reason why we did that is because we could then see how much overhang we had on each side. So if we have to move it to the left or right or forwards or backwards, we can see all of that before it's laid down. As soon as you're comfortable with the positioning of it, you can grab your squeegee, begin in the center, and then you can start to work your way out to each end. Now stop. Before you go ahead and actually lay down that squeegee onto your vinyl, you're going to want to spray some spray wax onto the vinyl piece itself. So on the top part, that's where you're going to be using your squeegee, putting pressure and pushing down that vinyl onto that piece of metal or whatever you want to wrap. So it's very important to have some sort of lubrication or some sort of way of making it so that the vinyl itself doesn't get scratched. So just take your time, don't push too hard, and use the proper tools and lubrication to get this done. Okay, now go back to work. You don't want to go ahead and start just laying down every section of it. You want to try and get it so that you're working with one quadrant at a time. So begin in the center, make that little X, and then from there you can go ahead and work on those other areas that you need to heat and stretch to lay down. Now don't get discouraged if you have any imperfections or any wrinkles inside the vinyl wrap. Don't worry. You can lift the entire thing up, remove the wrinkle, grab the heat gun, put a little bit of heat into it, and then it's basically starting off brand new again. Now be careful, don't put too much heat into it, because once you heat it and stretch it and heat it and stretch it too much, it's not gonna actually wanna stick and you're gonna be ruining the wrap. So if you have to do it, once or twice, it's not the end of the world, but don't oversaturate it with heat. Once you've got one little section down, don't worry about cutting the excess until we have the entire thing done. So because we have the hump here, because the antenna is still attached to the car, I need to worry about this section after the whole front is done, because I need to cut this section here out and then lay it down so that there's no wrinkles or anything back here. I'm gonna do the antenna black, but that's gonna be in a different piece. Okay, so what are you trying to do?
Trying to pull this area like away from itself just so you can get rid of some of the wrinkles just by stretching it slightly.
So that there was the center part, so we laid down, we laid across, and then we worry about these corners.
Yeah.
So you're gonna try and do it in a cross. So first that, and then that, and then you're gonna pull each corner out to the side and you're gonna apply a little bit of heat. So can you see that there's like these little lines in the vinyl wrap? So if you were to lay that down, you'd get a crease. Now what we're gonna try and do is we're gonna heat this entire section up, pull from this corner here, this way, not towards the car, not from the side of the car, but on a diagonal, like this. And it's actually going to remove or at least hide most of them. So once you apply some heat to it, we're not gonna have any of this stuff because it's stretched. So the front part of the vinyl wrap is pretty much all laid down. Once you grab a microfiber towel and you remove all the excess spray wax, you're going to see the kind of result or the finish that you're gonna be left with. So just with this little section here, you can see it's nice, it's smooth, there's no wrinkles, no nothing. Now we're obviously gonna trim off any excess and then tuck each one of the corners, but we're gonna wait until we get to the end to do that job. Right now, we need to work on the back side of it and worry about that little antenna. There are many different ways that you can approach this procedure. So if you want, you can do the entire thing in one piece, or you can do this in two pieces. So what I did is actually cut out a little section around where the antenna is, and then you can lay that part down. Ideally, you should only stretch any area if you need to. If you can avoid doing it, avoid doing it. It might be a little bit difficult to lay it down, it might not, it depends on how your wrap is and how good you are with it. It also depends on the complexity of the panel. However, that's the way that I approached it. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and remove the antenna completely from the car. Now, I tried doing that in the beginning, but it was way too much work and was not worth it if you ask me. So if you guys want to do that, you by all means can. But what it meant for me is that I had to remove everything on the interior to get access to it. So all the A pillars, the B pillars, the C pillars, the mirror up top, everything needed to be removed. I didn't think that was worth it for, let's call it a wrinkle or two on the top. So I was like, okay, whatever, be done with it. And if I really like the black look down the road and I really want to keep it, I'll get it professionally painted and then I'll be able to call it a day. But as for actually wrapping, you can get great results by it. Take your time, don't rush it, and if you get an imperfection or a wrinkle, just lift it up, put a little bit of heat into it, and then you can lay that section down. If you set aside an afternoon to get this done and you are dedicated to get this done right, I believe that you guys can do this without a problem. So once you have the main part of the roof now covered, we can trim off the excess material that's found on all four corners of the wrap. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to tuck a little bit of this material underneath the next panel so that you don't see any of the actual color of the vehicle between the wrap and the other side. So what we're gonna do is just cut slightly more than what we need and tuck it in. So the same thing applies for the front of the vehicle, the side, and also for the rear. If you're working with the antenna, you want to try and cut as close as you can to the base of the antenna without showing any kind of material. Now, ideally, if you can, you'd want to tuck a little bit of material underneath the antenna, but it is pretty stuck because it's held on by a 10 or a 12 millimeter bolt. The antenna is basically getting sandwiched onto the roof itself by that 10 mil. So it might be difficult to get something underneath there. But as for the outside perimeter of the roof, it is pretty easy to not only fold down the sides, but if you have any area that you can tuck the material under, I would definitely do that. For the sides of the A pillars on the top part of the roof, you can tuck underneath that side, and the same thing goes for the front leading edge. The leading edge is the most important part of it because if there's any kind of area that isn't tucked down there or laid down properly, it is going to lift, not only because there's going to be wind pushing on it, but you're also going to have other stuff like rain and dirt and other stuff being thrown at it. So be sure to get that part down, and then the roof is going to look incredible. So with the roof done, you're gonna have something that looks like this, and it looks so much better than how it did before. So you're gonna have the roof that looks really sweet because it's tucked on all the edges. You've got that nice contrast from your A pillar all the way down to the C pillar, and it just looks complete. Now what I really like too is that the rear diffuser is now black along with the roof, so it's got a really nice look to it. It's kind of hard to tell because the car is kind of inside outside, but I'll bring the car out to show you guys how sick this looks. So here it is. Black roof, completely vinyl, no paint, no nothing, and it looks great. We've got a really nice reflection out of this. It looks killer. We have no gray showing other than on the sides, and that's where we want it. So we have a nice contrast between the black and the gray. Now, it really depends on how much time and effort you want to put into vinyl wrapping and taking off or putting on the antenna, because that part there is going to be the only part that's going to be a difficult area to get done. So all these other cracks and all the other crevices, you shouldn't be able to see any gray or any body color afterwards. Should look really complete and should look really nice just like that. Now with the roof done, I really need to do the headlights. So I know that you guys have mentioned it before and I couldn't agree with you more. The headlights, and the door handles are two areas that I need to change up. So they don't really suit the car or the color scheme that I'm going for, but before I actually dress those, I want to start, modding the vehicle with some other mechanical bits. So I have two different parts that I'm going to be installing on the Z, but I want you guys to decide which one you want to see first. So I have a full catback exhaust system that I'm going to be throwing on the Z. I have currently right now catless headers and an axle back. Now I did notice a slight increase in power, but it's not going to be as much as doing a full engine back exhaust system. So right now I have a very restrictive Y pipe, and I found this exhaust system for relatively cheap. So I can either A, install that, or option 2, I can install the new coilovers that I bought for the Z. I should be able to lower the vehicle and get it so that it drives nicely. Right now, if I go off like a pretty decent sized bump or whatever, I will indeed rub. So I want to fix that, change the dampening, lower the front a little bit, and just make the Z look as good as it can be. So let me know what you guys think about this video. If you guys want to pick up any of the products, links are in the description as always. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.